Welcome to Pacific Unitarian Universalist Church, a beacon of liberal religious thought in the South Bay. We are an intentionally welcoming community to all races and creeds and gender identities and sexual orientations. We're a little bit old, and we're really new in terms of ideas. We're a bit of fun with an eye on creating a new and better world. We're small enough to feel like an extended family here, but we're big enough to be a community, and you are welcome from afar or from near. A couple announcements headed our way. First of all, thanks for anyone who came yesterday and helped work in the yard and the garden or out, cleaning up the bushes and stuff. Andy and I noticed that some of you didn't work very hard or very fast, so next time a little bit faster, right, Andy? Yep, no kidding. We had pizza. It was good. It was a nice community day. We started also our adult death and dying series, which we have 5 more parts. Saturday mornings at 10, we have a mix of speakers and just reflective pieces, practical pieces about death and dying, 10 to 11 or 11:30, based on how long we go every Saturday morning. This week, we have Seekers Wednesday at 10. We have the Senior Covenant group at 2. Seekers is just sort of an open philosophical forum. The Senior Covenant group is for older folks to gather, and we meet here masked, outside, and spaced out. Thursday, we've added sort of a senior lunch group, so you can just come up. We generally order pizza. It's kind of just a social event. We have drumming online most Sunday mornings. It's not a traditional group. They drum pop tunes. They drum ancient war beats. The neighbors are wondering what's going on. Tracy beats on Tupperware, I hear, at home. It's a thing. Meditation nights are only Tuesdays at 7. You can check into the website. Dan's leading them, but only on Tuesdays. And then we also have my call-ins on 11 o'clock on Tuesday and then 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. The big news, really, though, is that on the first Sunday in May, the 2nd, we're back here. We're going to have 40 chairs inside. It's New Member Sunday. We're going to have a bunch of chairs outside. It's our first time back in a large way. There will, as the joke says, mistakes will be made, and we're going to be back, and we're going to do the best we can, and we're going to stream that later. That's going to be streamed at, I believe, 12 o'clock. I'd like to invite Andy up, who's going to light our chalice and share our chalice words.
Cold and dark to flame and light. Within this chalice lies, inert, cool to the touch, and nearly motionless, alcohol lies the potential of flame. It is a clear liquid. If you looked in, you would see no light. Very little odor, warmth, no sign of life. And yet, with the mere touch of another flame, it emerges odd and small, but a generous source of light and heat. It is likewise within our own fearful hearts lies the potential of the indwelling God. It too is invisible and undetectable, and yet with the warmth of community, the touch of a caring hand, or even the hurt that breaks upon us, it emerges, an infinite source of hope and love.
Thank you, Andy. Beautiful words. It's Earth Day. There's a lot of feelings that wash over me every Earth Day. It's pretty deep. It is this joy that we have this ridiculously pretty planet to live on, right? The world, as you've noticed, no doubt, is almost prettier than you can imagine. No sermon easier to find a topic to write on, so that's good. But there's a poignant sense that we've been through this, that it's almost cliche now, roughly 50 years. And we know that we should care, but in the terms of the way we live our life, we don't really know what we can do. This is a novel time to be alive. Nature was for so much of human history to be feared, out to get us. Animals, cold, heat, mostly we've won. We haven't fully digested that, though. Everybody more or less is aware that we have a profound impact on the planet unless you're in great denial. and you're probably in great denial because you don't want the consequences. We're really the first generation or two in human history, those that our efforts
of enabling living and giving, make it still till it includes embraces all living. That this life comes to life, where words of free are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of a wrong guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
like to invite our children forward to the computer screens at home, if you would, for our children's moment. I want you guys to come forward and close your eyes for a second. You probably all are old enough to have a grasp of the coastlines of the earth. If you want to look at my stole, there's all the coastlines. You see the globe in a way we humans didn't really see it too many generations ago. All that edge where all the water meets the land, I want you to sort of grasp it. There's China down to India, there's Australia, there's India, there's the Middle East, there's the big coastlines of Africa, Europe, all over United States, California, where you are, down to South America. Take a little mental picture of that. Right now, every year on those coastlines all around, imagine 5 garbage bags full deep, standing about as tall as I would stand, full of plastic waste. That's the amount of plastic waste that we produce every year that makes it into the ocean. Floats around on top. Off the coast of California, sort of towards Hawaii, there is a big plastic bag. You're seeing an image of it now. It's a sea of plastic twice the size of Texas. This is all in the last, probably mostly my lifetime. 25 trillion pieces of plastic debris in the ocean, and that's just one environmental problem. You guys have a big duty. I am 54 years old. I probably have, who knows, 30 years left. You guys have a lot more years. I want you to commit yourselves to the idea that you're going to be a helpful solution to this planet on a couple areas. One, I want you to be really anti-racist, and I want you to be very environmental. Those two things are what's required probably more than anything else right now for us to become the best place we can be. Here's this plastic bin. This is just a little mock ocean. I got little cookie things. Most of the things that are in the ocean, if you were to take the number of them, they're straws. They're little plastic covers like this. They're little plastic bottles like this floating around and getting to the sea. There's some fishing line. There's just tons of stuff, right? All over the place. There is oil. Watch this. Oh yeah, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun to clean up. Look, there's some oil in there. There's plenty of that floating around too. Yeah. Gross. Let's try to clean that a little bit. Just cleaning the ocean would be a good idea. There we go. All right, we've got some cleaning agents. Let's see how well this works. We're going to clean the oceans. Not going to work. The easiest way, really the only way to keep this out of the sea is to keep us from producing as much of it as we do. It's a very serious cause. The generations that preceded me and you, we didn't have this moral concern. We had other moral concerns. Now this is one of the most, if not the most important moral concerns of spending time to think about. Life has never been easier than it is now. It's never been more convenient. We have to fight to keep that. At the same time, we not destroy the only planet we have. There is no planet B. There is no other place in all of the world that can host us. Just remember that. Crucially. Okay. I see you turn on my microphone. In a change where now time for joys and concerns. We're soon going to be back at a time where we'll all be together to share our own concerns, and that's a wondrous time. It's sad sometimes, but it's also just great. I want to lift up Deb Murphy, one of our loyal people, one of the people who sit on the sort of transformation team. She's got a sister in Mexico who's got uterine cancer and is not doing well, and I want us to extend our thoughts out to her. We have verdicts coming down around shootings that are likely going to lead to violence and could conceivably be expressions of white privilege in the world. We're going to hold our country and our ability to do a real sense of justice. It's also the start of Ramadan. So for there's just a little bit more Christians than Muslims in the world. They are the second largest group of people, and they're in the middle of a month of fasting and prayerfulness that we call Ramadan. We honor that tradition and that pursuit to deepen oneself in that unique way. We light a candle for the earth too. One of our more conservative members, Sal Marino, sent me an image which you might have all seen of 40 years of the last changes in the planet. Satellite imagery has given us. We have our own Naresh Deo, who's a person who puts satellites in space in part to monitor that. We need to be smarter about the planet and more concerned. And in that spirit, I turn back to Andy Kistner, who's going to lead us in prayer.
You carry Mother Earth within you, says Thich Nhat Hanh. She is not outside of you. Mother Earth is not just your environment. In that insight of inner being, it is possible to have real communication with the earth, which is the highest form of prayer. In that kind of relationship, you have enough love, strength, and awakening in order to change your life. Changing is just not changing the things outside of us. First of all, we need the right view that transcends all notions, including that of being and non-being, creator and creature, mind and spirit. That kind of insight is crucial for transformation and healing. Fear, separation, hate, and anger come from the wrong view that you and the earth are two separate entities. The earth is only the environment. You are in the center, and you want to do something for the earth in order for you to survive. This is a dualistic way of seeing. So to breathe in and be aware of your body and look deeply into it and realize you are the earth and your consciousness is also the consciousness of the earth. Not to cut the tree, not to pollute the water, that is not enough.
I don't know if you can hear it at home, but there's these beautiful birds chirping in the background, right, Andy? We're going to share a responsive reading written by Connie Barlow. Connie and her husband are environmental activists, Unitarian Universalist ministers, and they basically do sort of a traveling road show around ecology, promoting evolution as sort of a spiritual practice and as a spiritual truth. So these are their words. You at home are going to share the refrain called Yes to the Universe. So get ready to join us here. Andy, take it away.
Stars are born and stars die. Along the way, these stars fashion the very atoms of our bodies. Is this a universe we say yes to?
Yes to the universe.
Mountains are born and mountains die. Along the way, these mountains create the particles of sand and clay that blend with dead plants to become soil. Is this a universe we say yes to?
Yes to the universe.
Glaciers come and glaciers go. Along the way, they grind rocks into new soil, sculpt ponds and lakes. Is this a universe we say yes to?
Yes to?
Yes.
Yes to the universe.
Species come and species go. Along this odyssey of evolution, marvels emerge, eyes, limbs, feathers, song, terror, and love. Is this a universe we say yes to?
Yes to the universe.
Cells are born and cells die. Along the way, the winnowing yields fingers and toes, fins and wings, and the miracle of healing from injury. Is this a universe we say yes to?
Yes to the universe. Andy teaches biology, so I figured he'd dig that. I said earlier, there is no easier sermon to write than the annual Earth Day sermon. I get files and I sort of put them in there, and it just fills up with what next year's thing might be. No more information pours at us faster than the environmental impact of this and the eco-importance of that. I know you know this. And I want to say that my notes say, Steve, read this fast because the problem is urgent and the pace should reflect that. Here goes. From polar bears to pop bottles, bees to trees, asthma to asbestos, urgent info about carbon, coal, congestion, and climate change rush forward at us. Pictures I want to use for the cover and the order of service come at me, and I dump them in there when we made orders of service here. The angles and content of what can be said, what should be said, are so plentiful that, as we all know, Earth Day appeals come and fill up our recycling bin. Yours, I suspect, too. It requires no effort to come up with something we should all need to hear under the rubric of Earth Day. The sermon tells me we should change our behavior. We live in interesting, odd times. I say it every year. I've been thinking about climate change for as long as I've been an adult. I've traced back to remember what I thought before I was introduced to climate change. I was probably a high school person before that. Global warming was the way it was marketed not too long ago. I remember volunteering for the Anti-Nuke Council for a Livable World during grad school. I went to work for an environmental organization right out of college. And given that, I'm still part of the problem. And given that I try to maintain some portion of a life back in Boston, probably 1/7 of my life or so, and driven the continent both ways every summer, I'm probably a bigger problem than you. I know all anyone should need to know, and I am still part of the reason we need another planet. We need another planet, Andy.
We're working on Mars.
We're working on Mars. It's not going to work. It's so overwhelming. There's really no rational way a human being can live in these times and not be won over to the importance of the environment. You would have to have your head in the sand or believe that we're going to live in large portions on Mars, which we are not. It can be distracting, actually. And yet over a century of what professional advertisers want us to need, want us to want, scrambles for our attention too, usually wins, if you want to know the truth. Probably how you define yourself has a lot to do with what you can get and what you got. Our self-esteem is largely built on it. At the same pace we hear reduce, reuse, recycle, we receive credit card applications, catalogs, enticing techno this and tasty that fill our mailbox. Well, 2 mailboxes. One we discovered about 25 years ago wasn't enough. The physical mailbox wasn't enough. Cars, clothes, culture, coins, corporations have all seduced us to a new normal that the world has never seen and cannot afford. But to blame it all on ad men is to miss it. We humans barely need convincing that the comforts of the modern world are good, and they are good. It's an easy sell. We all know it. I don't have to convince you that the very animal in us loves it when we twist that thermostat a little to the right on a chilly morning. And then just in the last 75 years or so, we can twist it a little bit to the left when we're feeling a little bit too hot. It has nearly become a protestable human right to be living in the perfect temperature. I see people idling in their cars when it's 68 degrees, and I don't know whether they have the heat on or the air conditioning on. We all know creaturely at our depths how nice it is that we have these 2-ton slick machines that move our stuff about. Heated house, me needy. Heated car seats and air conditioning, me wanty. As predictably as 11-year-old boys chase foul balls at Dodger Stadium, we as animals rush towards those things that bring us comfort and convenience and status instinctively. Almost all of us who can afford to are guilty of stepping too hard on the earth. We have a problem. Just like we're uncovering in ways we would never have thought of that we are racist, we're also systematically guilty of stepping too hard on the earth in ways we were blind to and want to remain blind to, just like systematic racism. Right now in our little slice of history, in this odd moment of human history's huge arc, we're coming to realize the hard truth that our infinite planet is in trouble from, of all things, us. Narrowing down to a tighter spot, me, and the more unique, smaller royal we, us, not only humanity. Of all the species that have ever lived, it's the Homo sapiens that turn out to be the Earth's biggest problem. Should feel your moral collar tightening a little. And of all the people and of all the generations that have ever stepped foot on human Earth, it is us, particularly us Americans, particularly any of us that have wealth, that are the problem. More likely than not, the more money you have, the more likely it is that you are a problem. I heard somewhere and didn't test it, don't know if it's true, that every dollar that gets spent is the equivalent of about a Coke can worth of oil in terms of its consequences globally. It's worth a twisted chuckle. It's worth an embarrassed shrug of the shoulders that we have this hypocrisy. We live with it. It's a problem. If Judy Schaefer wasn't out there listening to me, monitoring my language, I would say that it really sucks. We've across all of history found ourselves to be living one of the lives that's consistently comfortable enough to be worth living, and it's killing us. Well, it's not killing us. It's slowly eroding and changing the climate, particularly for the poor, particularly for people of color. If air conditioning is literally cool, the fact that we're quite literally consuming the planet to be cool is almost like an ice cream headache. The truth is that telling you or anyone that it's a problem is not a hard sell. It's a hard consequence if you follow it. And that's why half our politicians have indulged us in the privilege of telling us that it's just not true, everything is fine. Climate changes on its own, which it does. Climate does change on its own. But there's never been 7 billion of us living at the fragile edges of it. It's kind of like alcohol and drugs are to our bodies. They're so easy to take in. They're so pleasant in the moment. They're so long-term insidious in its effect. So, in the spirit of telling the truth, I want everyone to say at home, if you would, and here as well, if you will as well, I am one of the primary problems the earth faces. Everyone. I am one of the primary problems the earth faces. It's true. You are, I am too. We're stuck in the middle. Those of us in this room are probably in agreement that we must give up our dependence on oil, and yet another voice tells us, as I feel in this particular moment, that we should and must jump in the car and visit that next place or go home and visit the family a few states away. We're torn. It is a capital G good that we experience more than any other generation. We are probably the most interesting people that have ever lived. We can listen to loud, clear music on shiny discs or even in the cloud now, magically, digitally streamed in ways we barely understand. We can all get to a hospital not too many miles away, and yet the whole system is built on a fuel source that's killing us. We just completed the hottest decade in recorded human history, even recorded back as far as we can stretch. We've almost guaranteed about every 3 years to hit the hottest year on record. The world is heading for an ecological credit crunch, far worse than the housing crisis of about a decade ago. I want to tell you a different story. I want to tell you one about flowers and how beautiful the canyon is. But we have to learn this just like we have to learn the ways that the system works to provide privilege. A report called Living Planet Report calculates that humans are using about 30% more resources on the earth than it can replenish every year, which is leading to deforestation, degraded soils, polluted air and water, dramatic declines in fish and other species populations. $4 trillion a year is the estimated sort of world cost to the shifts that will be for the change in climate, with loss of rainfall, eroded soils, migration. $4 trillion a year we're sort of building up backlogged in terms of the problem. The US and China are the biggest problems. We account for more than 2/5 of the ecological footprint of the planet, 21% each, roughly, sort of in there. It changes. Humans are using 30% more resources than is sustainable. So, thank God the oil, a big part of our footprint, will run out. Sadly, not soon enough. I want to change custom here and overtly, proudly thank God for something. I want everyone to thank God the oil is running out. Join me. Thank God the oil is running out. Hard, kind of comical. The sermon should feel hypocritical and a little bit silly, and it should make you confused as to what to do. They say that the smarter you are, the more you're able to hold two disparate truths in the same mind. It's a sign of wisdom to be able to hold two things that seem inconsistent. We're always on a journey to truth, particularly in this church, right? We let truth confuse our spirituality and the good feelings, right? We get in the way of what people would call spirituality because we have to tell the truth. It is part of our legacy. We as human beings have struggled to learn that there isn't much difference between the capacity of what we define as the genders. Men and women are really not as different as we thought, with all those rules and who stands here and who gets to say what. We've all, minus the nonsense of a few countries like North Korea, come to understand that monarchs and kings and queens are just humans that we dressed up to convincingly look for a while like gods. We've come to learn that rain dances don't work, and then when you split a human being open on the top of a pyramid you've built, it doesn't necessarily keep the gods happy or mean that you're in favor. We learn these things. We've learned that some people are not attracted to the opposite gender, which we wanted to box everybody into that box for a while. And we've learned that people's bodies don't represent their understanding of who they are in very deep and real ways. We understand the power of compounding interest as it relates to savings and debt, and now carbon. And likewise, we are nearly at the official understanding that we're at a danger point. Do you know how long we've had any idea that the addition of carbon to the atmosphere facilitated a general warming and a dangerous shift that could bring cooling or warming? We're really not clear. 50, 60 years. We as a species want to thrive. We have to do what we've always done. We have to adapt. We have to translate the information that we see as quickly as possible into cultural shifts. We're good at cultural shifts. We really are. When it comes to Earth, we get it. We haven't figured out how to act upon it in relation to the consequences. This is an issue of will more than it's an issue of wisdom. And I think that the facts won't save us. My inner sociologist tells me that we cannot expect to save the earth simply by knowing that carbon is filling the air. We don't work like that. We need our emotions and our culture to get excited about this rational problem as well. It won't work otherwise. We need to shift our myths and stories we tell ourselves. We have to go on an emotional journey that a better life than the one we lead is marked by ecological health and well-being. That's going to be a hard path. Remembering what is normal is generally only a couple generations old. We're more flexible than we imagine, and we better be. Our relationship with the planet will change. There is no question about that. The only question is, will it change on our terms? Because the planet will change. The question is ours, is how much of us want to be on it when it does. The future, as Unitarian Universalists have come to discover, is undefined. There is no such thing as fate. Let's see what we do. Let's see how smart we are. Amen. I don't have humorous words for us. I have our affirmation of gratitude, which we left lying wanting there for about 6 months or so. We've brought back. So here we go. If you at home can remember this, you can try and join me. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us also be grateful for our needs so that we may experience the generosity of others. I want to read it one more time. We're going to have it up on the screen next week, and then we're going to be back the week after that to say it aloud and proud. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege, which they don't. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts, for we're enriched by the giving. So give to the church and other good things. And let us be also grateful for our needs that we may experience the generosity of others, and that's important too. We take that sentiment to music, and Tara and Severin are going to share their skills with us.
Please welcome Tara Osborne. We're going to do a tune by Stanley Cowell named Equipoise.
Thank you, Severin and Tara. In case you're wondering, Tara is the offspring of our own Dale Osborne. Now, in closing, let us remember that this church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all of our differences and beneath all of our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to that unity.
May the blessing of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. May love's presence illuminate your hearts, now and forevermore. So be it. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Namaste. Blessed be. And now our service truly begins.